The Old Farmers Almanac has been around for a very long time. In fact, it was first published in 1792, making it the oldest continuously published periodical in North America. Many people believe in the Farmers Almanac and their long-range weather predictions. That's what we're going to talk about today with Jack Burnett, the managing editor and Canadian spokesperson with the Farmers Almanac, and he joins me now from Dublin, New Hampshire. Jack, welcome back to BCN.
Thank you very much, Hal. It's always great to be with you and your viewers.
Thanks so much, Jack. For our younger viewers, how would you best describe Farmers Almanac?
Sure. The Old Farmers Almanac started, as you said, 228 years ago. And back in its day, it was the Google of its time. So you could look up anything that you wanted to find there rather than going on your laptop. You'd go into your Farmers Almanac, Old Farmers Almanac, and you'd have it all. Anything that you needed to kind of live your life in a fun and productive way.
Now, according to the 2020 Old Farmers Almanac Canadian edition, the forecast for most of Canada this winter is not very cold, but will we see lots of the white stuff?
Yeah, very, very snowy. We're calling it Game of Snows. Pretty snowy, not quite so cold, but still, it's a Canadian winter. And the only exceptions to that are in central and eastern Quebec, over in BC, and then actually right where you are, where we expect it to be not quite so cold, but by the same token, not quite so snowy, and more of the edge precipitation, I'm afraid to say.
It's interesting. I talked to a lot of my friends and family in Edmonton, Calgary, Red Deer. It's been rain and cold all summer. Here, though, in southwestern Alberta and Lethbridge, lots of sunshine and warm temperatures, and I'll take that. We've at least been blessed with a very nice summer so far. Now, the outlook for southern Alberta is a little bit different in that it'll be not so cold, but wet as opposed to snow. Are we going to see a little more of the rain?
Right, a little bit more. We'll find the temperatures, it kind of makes sense. Not quite so cold. So more of those days when they are down in the 30s to be a little bit closer to the lower 30s, so that it stands to reason that you'll be blessed with a little less snow and a little more water. But, this is just kind of a general pattern. It's not some huge winter-long thing.
How about for some of our viewers, Jack, who are joining us in British Columbia, let's talk about maybe the coast, the lower mainland, the island, and then maybe the interior as well.
Yeah, what happens in BC is interesting. It's going to be colder, colder than it is where you are, but it's also going to, and it's also going to be wetter than you are, so to speak. So that would seem to be kind of counterintuitive. But what that says is particularly along the coast, more of the edge precipitation, but the ski areas, they should be okay.
It's interesting. A lot of my friends in Vancouver, they refer to it instead of the west coast, but the wet coast. So I think they're kind of used to some of the moisture. How accurate were your forecasts for last winter? Did you look back?
They were, they were between 71 and 72%, which is down from our usual 80%. It was above 80% in the US, so it kind of slides back and forth. We're into the fourth year of a four-year experiment into tweaking our ancient formula to account for climate change. We think we have that figured out, and so we'll start incorporating that into our computer algorithms in the future. It'll be fine.
I understand that you do the long-range weather predictions 18 months in advance, a year and a half. How exactly do you predict weather that far in advance?
Good question. Well, we start with the three things that were used by the founder of the Old Farmers Almanac, a guy named Robert B. Thomas, outside Boston in 1792, as we said. So he used meteorology, which is kind of the local weather phenomena and things that impact it. Climatology, long-term weather trends and patterns, which are important to us. And the third thing that he used was solar science, solar radiation, sunspots. So he was one of the first, if not the first, to think that solar radiation had something to do with it. So what we do now is we have all the weather observations for Lethbridge and Alberta, Canada, US for that matter, that we'd ever been able to find, loaded into a computer, and then we look for a pattern in the past that resembles the present. A weather pattern. So then, for thousands and thousands of locales, then we go back in the past and we say, would it make sense for what happened next back then to happen next now? So we filter it through the things that are important to us. And that, in many respects, is how we do it. A lot of people think, well, you have 100 woolly bear caterpillars crawling around on a table and you see what you do. But no, it's all based on the same scientific data that Environment Canada uses, we just kind of look at it in a different way.
How's the Old Farmer's Almanac when it comes to predicting typhoons and hurricanes? I mean, this is hurricane season right now. We're seeing a lot of the devastation from Hurricane Dorian.
Yeah, that's hard to do. And we only predict things like that when the computers are really throwing up a lot of what I'll call red flags. We actually had predicted Dorian to arrive when it did, but we didn't, and eventually to get to the Maritimes. But when it stalled, that's where we lost it, So we got the arrival okay, because that's what the computers were showing us. But we didn't plan for the stalling. The same thing happens with snowstorms, huge storms, snowstorms or big ones, and blizzards. We only call for them when there's a lot of indication, sort of an anomaly of an indication. And this winter, since you asked, we're actually going to go out on a limb and name a couple of days for Lethbridge. All right, so we're going to name to watch out for snowstorms on December 15th. And right, and ready for this one, March 29th.
Oh, why not say Christmas Eve? That wouldn't be so bad,
Yeah,
March 29th.
Yeah, so look like bookends.
Jack, what's interesting too is sometimes down in the southern states in the United States, we see snow where you don't normally see snow in the wintertime, to places like Texas and Florida. Can those states look forward to seeing more snow potentially this winter?
Well, they're going to be the U.S. map kind of looks like a patchwork quilt. Any type of combination of different temperatures and snow, rain, you can find it in the U.S. And Texas, I think, has 3 or 4, maybe even 5 different little regional happenings. So whatever's out there, part of it's going to happen in Texas.
Now, some of the folks at Environment Canada disagree with your forecasting methods. They say using sunspot activity, moon phases, and the like is simply not scientific. So, Jack, how do you respond to that?
Yeah, we don't use moon phases, and I know that there have been some studies over the past 10 years which are starting to see that solar radiation might have something to do with it. But the way I respond to it is that we're not in competition with Environment Canada. We think that everyone thinks they're one of the great weather services in the world. We use the same data, as I said, and it's like making soup. I always say it's like making soups. So we take our ingredients, they take the same ingredients. We put them into the soup pot in different proportions. We cook them a little bit differently. We stir them a little bit differently. And in the end, we have 2 soups. Most people, and then people taste them, Some people like one, some people like the other. Most people like both. So it's a win-win, we think.
And now I'm very hungry. Thank you for putting that soup thought into my head here. I noticed that the Farmers Almanac has a set of tables to follow for planting crops and veggies. Do moon cycles maybe have an effect on those, on the growth?
Yeah, that's a different part of the Old Farmers Almanac, planting by the moon's phase. Yes, so that is like based on old traditions and folklore and so forth. So that's a different thing. And yes, it gives you the best times to plant things. I'm not going to say almost anything, but dozens and dozens of different plants and crops.
Okay, let's move ahead now to the spring and the summer of 2020. What is it looking like for the prairies?
Prairies in the spring, it's looking to be ever so slightly cooler, ever so slightly wetter, but I don't see any big problem, for farmers. Summer, a little bit warmer and a little bit drier. So it's going to be, I think it's going to be good for agriculture. It's going to be good for people who are outside. It's going to be good for golfers, so there you go. It's like the trifecta.
Yeah, that's right. Put me in that category. More of a scratch golfer, I guess, here. What does it look like for the folks in southern British Columbia for next spring and summer?
Next spring and summer, it's looking, again, a little bit cooler and a little bit wetter for BC. Summer, hotter and wetter, as opposed to warmer and wetter. So they're going to have a little bit more temperature than you.
What about the spring and summer forecast for southern Ontario, where my kids live right now?
Well, again, they're looking to be about normal temps, for spring, with a little bit less rain than normal. And then as far as summer goes, a really nice, pleasant summer, normal to slightly above normal temps, a little bit drier, should be fine.
How about southern Quebec?
Well, southern Quebec will start to see things coming off the lakes and also coming off the Atlantic. So be a little bit wetter, kind of all around in Quebec.
And what about the Atlantic provinces? New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, PEI?
Same thing. They're going to be. It's almost like a bookend thing with BC. They're going to be hotter, and then but still with a little bit of moisture. So I think they'll have a good summer.
Now, the Almanac also includes an article on why extreme weather is on the rise. Can you explain that?
Sure. Well, we look at all kinds of changes that are happening, and the Arctic is a good place to look. And what happens basically is that there is what's called the Arctic Oscillation, which is an air current that goes around the pole, around the Arctic Circle, basically. So whenever ocean temperatures or land temperatures change dramatically, it kind of upsets the normal pattern. Think of a figure skater twirling, so it's all smooth and everything. But when something upsets it, all of a sudden this pattern starts to wobble. And when it wobbles, the cold air comes down and like a sine wave, and the colder and warmer air interact more. And so that means more storms and more quote unquote weather.
Now, you have an article called Noise, Why It's Bad for Our Health, and How People Since the Beginning of Time Have Been Fighting Against It. Tell me more about that.
Sure. Well, we started thinking these days when everybody's face everywhere, in the media it seems, and we try to be our two media outlets try to be, bastions of calmness and nicety. We started thinking, well, noise, no, what do we know about noise? So this article in the Old Farmers Almanac Canadian edition with the yellow cover is all about everything from the invention of burglar alarms to headphones and just things about sound and noise that you ordinarily wouldn't think about.
Now, with the Almanac too, Jack, you sometimes have some bizarre stories or facts, and you have a story about Canadian money, including the time that the devil appeared in Queen Elizabeth's hair?
Yeah, I'm not sure if we should give this away, but yeah, there was actually a note printed in the 50s that people claimed to see the devil's face image in her hair. So they had to kind of go back to the drawing board and kind of, I'm not going to say straighten her hair out, but I had to rearrange the curls a little bit. That's one part of that little thing. The other one, of course, is whether it's true or false that the loonie was originally supposed to be a hockey puck. You know the answer to that? And it wasn't, but the dies to the coins got lost, and because originally it was meant to be a voyageur, not a loon. So little things like that. The OFA, the Old Farmers Almanac, is full of them. There's something on every page.
Well, I know, what was it, the 2020 or 2012 Vancouver Olympics? Some of the Canadian hockey players, they planted a loonie at center ice there for the gold medal game, hoping that it'd bring good luck for Canada. So, and it actually turned out to be good luck. We won the gold that year, so that was wonderful. Jack Burnett, the Farmers Almanac's managing editor and Canadian spokesperson, thanks a lot for joining me today from New Hampshire.
Thank you very much, Hal. It's always a pleasure.
On behalf of all of us here at BCN, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless and have a great night.